In the bustling city of Springfield, we meet Jake Reynolds, a 28-year-old man with big dreams but little clarity on how to achieve them. With a love for gaming and technology, Jake works as a customer service representative at a tech company, yet he finds himself stuck in an endless cycle of bills and regretful spending. His car is a few years old and barely runs, showcasing the poor financial choices he has made over the years. He often finds himself daydreaming about a better life, envisioning a career in programming that could provide him with the financial stability he craves. Jake has always been ambitious, but his decision-making skills lag behind his aspirations. He spends evenings scrolling through social media, watching videos of successful entrepreneurs, their lavish lifestyles evoking both admiration and envy. Yet, his mindset toward money often feels conflicted. He desires wealth but struggles to pull himself out of the rut he's constantly in. His perception of growth feels clouded by self-doubt, and the burden of monthly rent and payment deadlines looms ever heavier. Motivation strikes one morning as he watches a particularly inspiring story of a young programmer whose success was rooted in strategic learning and perseverance. It acts as a wake-up call for Jake. He knows he can't go on like this, something must change for him to break free from the financial shackles. However, deep down, he acknowledges that the path forward will not be easy. Facing fears of failure and the threat of starting over, Jake prepares for a journey laden with challenges, realizing that the first step towards his goals requires a transformative change in his thinking and habits. He decides to pursue further education in programming while seeking practical financial advice, knowing that this could be the tipping point he has long awaited. After that inspiring video, Jake turned a new page in his life. He decided that the time for change had come. His first major step was to gather some resources that could help him learn more about money management and strategic thinking. He headed to the local library one Saturday morning, a place he hadn't visited in years. With a list of books in hand, he chose titles that focused on budgeting, investing, and personal development. Titles like The Total Money Makeover and Rich Dad Poor Dad caught his eye, filling him with hope as he flipped through the pages. At home, Jake set aside an hour each evening to read. He dedicated a small dining table to his new routine. He wanted to treat this moment as if it were a significant event, so he arranged a few pens and colorful sticky notes beside him. Each evening, he took notes on key concepts that resonated with him. One important lesson echoed throughout many books: start where you are. Use what you have. If he wanted financial success, he would have to start taking control of his situation now, one step at a time. Encouraged by what he learned, Jake took the plunge into budgeting. He printed out a simple template he found online and began to track his expenses. He wrote down every little purchase, from his morning coffee to his monthly rent. Seeing the numbers on paper was enlightening, yet anxiety soon followed. As the days turned into weeks, the reality of his financial situation hit him hard. He wrote down more red ink than he ever expected, and it was tough to swallow. Each month felt tighter than the previous one, and worry loomed over his progress. To make things harder, some of his friends noticed Jake's changes and questioned his commitment. "Why are you wasting your time with budgeting?" one friend teased. "It's not going to change anything." Their skepticism felt like heavy weights pushing down on him, challenging his newfound resolve. In moments like this, the doubts started to creep in, fueling his inner critic. Was he truly capable of changing his financial situation, or was he simply chasing a dream? Jake had to find ways to overcome these moments of weakness. He sought out podcasts and videos from financial experts, who spoke about the sacrifices necessary to achieve progress. The words resonated with him, reminding Jake that everyone faces doubts and struggles at the start. Suddenly, he felt a fire reigniting inside him. If others could do it, so could he. However, implementing new habits was easier said than done. Each time he tried to avoid eating out with his friends, he found himself torn between the enjoyment of their company and the discipline of sticking to his budget. "Just one meal won't hurt," he kept telling himself. Yet, as he made these choices, the exact essence of discipline began to waver. Additionally, with all the strategies he encountered, Jake often felt overwhelmed by the amount of information. Investing, insurance, retirement savings, it all seemed like a mountain of knowledge stretching endlessly before him. Ideas raced in his mind but often left him confused. He shuffled between learning strategies, attempting one, and quickly doubting his choice when it got complicated. Each night ended with mixed feelings. Jake experienced moments of hope intertwined with frustration. Yet, deep down, he reminded himself that progress comes through persistent effort, even if it meant stumbling along the way. He learned to take one step at a time, embracing patience and allowing small victories to become stepping stones to his ultimate goals. Slowly but surely, he was laying the groundwork for his new life, one that aligned more closely with the bright vision he had seen on that screen. As Jake continued to widen his understanding of financial management, he began to experience small wins that lifted his spirits. Over the course of a few weeks, he managed to save a little money each month. By cooking more meals at home and enjoying time with friends in simple ways, he felt a refreshing sense of control over his finances. These small steps gave him confidence, and he started to believe that he could truly change his financial path. One evening, while scrolling through his favorite financial podcast, Jake stumbled upon an advertisement for a local seminar about investment strategies. The speaker was a successful entrepreneur known for helping beginners understand how to invest wisely. Curiosity piqued, he decided to attend, aware that this could ignite the next phase of his journey. During the seminar, Jake learned about various investment options, from stocks to mutual funds. The excitement in the room was contagious, and he found himself completely absorbed in the speaker's stories of those who transformed their lives through careful investing. However, he also felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. The risks involved with investing were significant, and the wrong choice could lead him back to square one, where he might have to grapple with failure and disappointment. After the seminar, Jake participated in a small networking group where attendees discussed their investment ideas. He met Lisa, a woman not much older than him who had begun investing early and was already seeing returns. She shared her experiences and encouraged Jake to consider starting small. Inspired by Lisa's confidence, Jake debated whether he should invest part of the money he had saved. It was a significant decision. Should he take this leap or remain in his comfort zone? On one hand, sticking with what felt safe was tempting. He could rely solely on his traditional saving method, which, while slow, had proven reliable so far. However, Jake remembered everything he had learned about calculated risks and potential rewards. The idea of growing his money excited him, but he also felt the weight of fear pulling him back. That night, Jake sat down to weigh the options. He pulled out a notebook and wrote down his thoughts. He asked himself various questions. What have I learned about investments? Can I afford to lose this money? Are there safer investments I could explore? As he penned his thoughts, the scales began to tip toward taking action. Investment in stocks might be a risk, but it also offered a chance for higher returns. Jake took a deep breath and glanced at the money he had saved so carefully. It was not a large sum, but it represented his efforts and the small victories he had managed to achieve. He could choose to invest a certain portion, ensuring he would leave himself a safety net. This way, he could test the waters and still maintain enough savings for emergencies. Buoyed by a blend of excitement and apprehension, Jake decided he would take a small step into the investment world. He researched online platforms for beginner investors. Each click felt like a heartbeat, bringing his goal closer while amplifying his doubts. He opted to start with a fractional share in a well-known company that aligned with trends he understood. It was not much but enough to provide an initial thrill. In that moment of decision, Jake experienced a wave of pride. He acknowledged the fear still lurking within him but also celebrated the courage he found to push back. The decision to invest was not just about the money, it encompassed his strive toward growth and overcoming fear. Each choice led him closer to his dreams, and no matter the outcome, he felt certain that he was on the right path, taking ownership of his financial future for the first time in his life. Just as Jake began to feel more confident in his investment journey, an unexpected challenge struck. It began with an email that flashed up on his phone one afternoon while he was at work. The subject line caught his attention: "Market Flash Crash." His heart sank as he read through the brief news summary. The stock market had taken a severe dive, and many companies had lost significant value almost overnight. Jake felt a sinking feeling in his stomach. He had invested in one of those companies. His mind raced as he calculated how much he could lose. With his knowledge still fresh and his anxiety heightened, he knew he had to stay calm. However, the dread of a potential loss began to wrap around him like a thick fog. Whenever he thought about the savings he had so carefully built, a creeping doubt bubbled up inside him. Had he been foolish to invest even a small amount? Was he trying to chase something that would always be out of reach? That evening, standing in front of his computer, Jake felt frozen. Should he sell his shares and cut his losses now, or should he hold on, trusting that the market would recover? He remembered his notes from the seminar, the importance of staying the course during downturns. But fear whispered that his instincts might be right this time. Frustration kicked in as every article online seemed to contradict one another. Some experts suggested selling immediately, while others urged patience. He felt trapped between fear and the desire to make a wise decision. Old habits began creeping into his thoughts. His earlier belief that he would never be good with money clawed at him. How easy it would have been to retreat to the old ways, to suppress this feeling of fear by shutting his laptop and pretending this wasn't happening. He imagined the possibility of going back to a life of merely getting by, of budgeting without thought for investment or growth. Every second spent staying indecisive drained his energy. In the pit of his stomach, Jake sensed that this moment was more than just about money. It felt like a test of everything he had worked for, a measure of his true commitment to change. Finally, he forced himself to take a step back and breathe. He recalled the books he had read, the lessons he had learned about resilience and strategic thinking. This was the very reason he had started this journey. It was not just about financial gains but about developing a mindset that allowed him to tackle any obstacle. With determination, Jake grabbed his notebook. He wrote down his fears and uncertainties, giving a voice to the anxiety that refused to let go. He turned his thoughts into questions. Can stocks recover? What are the fundamentals of the company I invested in? This practice helped ground him. As he faced the questions, he realized that panic often leads to hasty decisions. He decided to reassess his position calmly and logically. He would take small steps to research the situation specifically about his investments. Jake pulled up the latest news articles, looking for the basis of the stock market drop. As he read through the information, he learned that market fluctuations are a natural part of investing. Such moments often create bargains for patient investors. Not wanting to act impulsively, Jake made the conscious decision to hold his shares. His heart still raced at the thought of the potential loss, but he felt more in control. The choice marked a pivotal moment, one where he realized that setbacks are part of the journey, and how he responded was just as important as the actions taken to get there. He resolved that this would not be the end, but rather an opportunity to grow stronger, both financially and personally. As the days passed since the market crash, doubt festered in Jake's mind. Each glance at his investment app filled him with a mix of anxiety and frustration. He had watched the numbers fluctuate, feeling as though each dip mirrored his own confidence. The stakes had never felt higher. With every tick of the clock, Jake was confronted by a decision that could define his financial future. He wrestled with the urge to sell his shares and mitigate his losses. Selling would offer a sense of safety and immediate relief from the stress of watching the numbers fall. Yet, each time he considered it, he was reminded of his initial commitments to learning, growth, and faith in his decisions. He was stuck between the desire for security and the hope for greater rewards. At night, Jake lay awake, his thoughts racing. What if he sold now and the market rebounded tomorrow? He wished someone could give him a clear answer. In his heart, he believed that a solid investment strategy involved patience, but the flickering fear whispered that waiting could cost him dearly. He began running through the potential consequences, chasing around the thoughts like a dog on a leash. If he sold, he might feel relief momentarily, but he would lose out on the possibility of significant gains when the stocks recovered. Alternately, the temptation of going back to his old ways surged again. Sitting on the sidelines, watching as his friend made more aggressive investment choices while he stalled, pulled him back into familiar territory. The inertia tempted him to retreat, to convince himself that perhaps the financial world was indeed not meant for him. He was increasingly aware that the ticking clock of indecision was just as paralyzing as a loss itself. Inaction could lead him to dampen his emerging financial skills and ultimately fail to elevate his situation. One stormy night, while pacing his small living room, Jake stopped in front of the window. He gazed out at the downpour, letting the weight of the rain hit him like a wave. This was when something shifted within him. He recalled all the moments he had pushed through fear, the hours spent reading about financial literacy, the late nights spent analyzing stocks, and the supportive messages he had gathered from mentors online. It became clear, Jake realized that the discomfort was a part of growth, much like soaking wet clothes in a rainstorm. They may not be comfortable, but they shaped where he was going. Taking a deep breath, Jake sat down at his desk again, notebook by his side. He began to write out every reason to sell his shares and every reason to hold on to them. Writing revealed stark clarity, the reasons to hold outweighed the fears. Watching others realign their plans, take big leaps in risk, and push ahead made him think about how deeply he wanted to approach his goals. One key realization struck: letting go of fear required commitment to change and maintaining focus on long-term goals. After much reflection, Jake decided on his course of action. He wouldn't sell. Instead, he placed a limit order to buy more shares at a lower price, essentially believing that this market turbulence could present an opportunity. The sinking feeling in his stomach began to fade, replaced with a sensation of empowerment. Every calculated risk and confident push against the fear reinforced the new mindset he was cultivating. This moment became a turning point, solidifying not only his financial choices but his overall perspective about setbacks. Success didn't depend on never facing challenges but rather on how he responded to them. No more retreating into old habits, he was ready to embrace this chance for breakthrough, fully committed to the path forward. As the rain continued to pour outside, Jake recognized a light inside him that began to shine even brighter. With his decision made, Jake felt a spark of determination ignite within him. He quickly opened his investment app and executed a limit order to buy more shares of the company he believed in, confident that the downturn would eventually reverse. It was an act of trust, not just in the stock market but in his own ability to make thoughtful choices under pressure. He had studied, read, and reflected, and now it was time to put those lessons into practice. As he confirmed the transaction, Jake experienced a mix of relief and excitement. He was stepping out of the shadow of fear and into the light of opportunity. This was no longer just about the money, it was about reaffirming his commitment to personal growth. He had realized that investing isn't a sprint but a marathon, requiring patience, strategic thinking, and sometimes even a willingness to endure discomfort. In the days that followed, as headlines about the stock market fluctuated back and forth, he tracked the performance of his investment. With each rise and dip, he felt more grounded and less emotional. His decision was based on careful consideration, and he reminded himself that financial growth rarely followed a straight path. Instead of panicking with each news alert about market movements, he focused on understanding broader trends and forming a long-term plan. Slowly, over the next few weeks, the company's stock began to recover as positive earnings reports surfaced, and investors regained confidence. Jake watched as his investments started to yield returns. His decision to buy more shares during a down market proved beneficial, and he felt a swell of pride with each upward shift of the numbers on his screen. However, it wasn't just the financial gain that felt rewarding. More significantly, Jake recognized how far he had come. He had transformed from a man riddled with fear of failure into one who embraced calculated risks. The process had taught him resilience. He discovered that setbacks could teach valuable lessons. Instead of viewing obstacles as permanent roadblocks, he began to see them as opportunities for growth. With newfound confidence, Jake started attending local investment workshops to deepen his financial knowledge. Each interaction with fellow investors reinforced his belief in the power of continuous learning. He met mentors who guided him further, introducing strategies he hadn't previously considered. He was no longer acting alone but was part of a community filled with individuals equally committed to their financial journeys. Before long, Jake began to create a more comprehensive financial plan that included goals like saving for retirement, possible diversifying his investments, and setting up an emergency fund. Each step taken along the way echoed his earlier commitment to shift his mindset from one of fear to one of empowerment. This journey had transformed his understanding about wealth and success. No longer did he view money solely as a means of living, he saw it as a tool for creating opportunities, stabilizing his life, and achieving his dreams. As he reflected on his journey, the fear of failure now seemed distant compared to the thrill of continual learning and the determination to succeed. His approach to financial decisions now embraced patience, strategy, and logic, rooting deeper into a foundation built on knowledge rather than on panic. With each step forward, Jake felt empowered, in control of his financial future and aware that no challenge was insurmountable with the right mindset. This was just the beginning, but now, he faced the future with a willingness to learn and a courage anchored in self-belief and determination. As the weeks turned into months, Jake began to fully process the impact of his decisions. The once narrow perspective he had on wealth and financial success was expanding like never before. His investments had not only begun to recover, but they were also producing solid returns that were steadily increasing his confidence and financial knowledge. One Saturday morning, Jake sat down at his kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee, reflecting on the recent fluctuations in his portfolio. Each upward tick on the investment app represented hours of research, reflections, and grueling decisions made in the depths of his uncertainty. With a smile, he realized he was no longer shackled by his previous fears. Instead, he embraced a forward-looking attitude shaped by patience and understanding. Realizing that consistent learning remained crucial to his growth, Jake decided to refine his strategies. He created a structured plan, setting specific financial goals he aimed to achieve over the next few years. He began tracking his advancements, jotting down notes on the impacts of economic changes and new investment ideas that he discovered during his weekly workshops and online classes. This habit of documentation not only allowed him to clarify his thoughts but also helped him analyze what worked and what didn't. His confidence grew as he actively revised his investment approach. He explored diverse sectors, researching industries like technology and sustainability that appealed to him. This not only expanded his portfolio but also satisfied his curiosity. The more he learned, the more he enjoyed the process. Investing was no longer seen as a daunting task but as an exciting journey full of potential. There was a certain joy in the analyzing, strategizing, and seeing how each decision influenced his financial landscape. As he recognized the long-term effects of his initial actions, Jake also found himself reflecting on his viewpoint regarding wealth and work ethic. Gone were the days when he equated hard work solely with just getting by without thought for tomorrow. He now saw financial success as a multidimensional goal, one that combined not just income but also knowledge, effort, and smart decisions. He recalled his earlier feelings of frustration and fear, realizing how much he had grown. The investment journey had illuminated his true potential, revealing strengths he never fully acknowledged before. Hard work was certainly important, but the way one approaches that work, through continuous learning and disciplined decision-making, made all the difference. Jake felt empowered knowing that his mindset could change his circumstances if he committed to adapting and learning. With this new understanding, Jake also began to think about how he could share his journey and insights with others. He considered the community events he had attended and realized a passion for teaching others the lessons he had learned. By discussing strategies and insights, he could help others navigate their financial journeys, just as he had once sought guidance. This thought filled him with a sense of purpose and excitement. Jake now viewed wealth not just as a personal pursuit but as a resource that could benefit others. Inspired by the idea of giving back, he mapped out plans to lead beginner workshops in his local community, extending the encouragement he once received. The exercise helped solidify his commitment to approach wealth with responsibility, seeing it as a way to uplift others. This transformation had been profound. His outlook on success had evolved from scarcity to abundance. He learned that success is not simply measured in dollars but rather in growth, resilience, and the knowledge that life often progresses through thoughtful choices. With newfound clarity, Jake recognized the long, winding path ahead, but rather than feeling daunted by the journey, he faced it with excitement and hope. A few months later, just as Jake reached a comfortable rhythm with his investments and financial plans, a new challenge emerged. One afternoon, as he was reviewing his budget, his car unexpectedly broke down. The mechanic's call confirmed his fears. The repair would cost over $1,000. Jake felt a moment of tightness in his chest, reminiscent of his old worries about money. This time, however, he decided to approach the challenge without panic. Before reacting, Jake took a moment to breathe. He remembered lessons from the workshops and the advice he'd gathered on emergency funds. Whereas his former self might have spiraled into disappointment or fear of falling back into debt, Jake now felt empowered by the strategic thinking he had cultivated. He started by assessing his options. Rather than simply charging the repair costs onto a credit card, which would lead to more stress later, he turned to his budgeting plan. He had diligently set aside money each month for unexpected expenses. With a quick glance at his budget, Jake found he had enough savings to cover the repairs, along with some left over for important future expenses. This realization left him feeling relieved, knowing he had prepared for such moments. The repair process took a few days, and during that time, Jake reflected on his financial journey. He recognized how far he had come from the days of fearing money management. The thought of launching and implementing new strategies was no longer daunting, it was an exciting endeavor. Inspired by his recent successes and these ideals, he decided to take a proactive step in his community to promote financial literacy. Jake arranged a workshop at his local library titled Finance Made Simple. He wanted to share the principles he had mastered while reaching out to new investors. He put together a presentation simplifying budgeting, investment strategies, and methods for overcoming setbacks. As he prepared, he felt a swell of confidence. He was now positioned as a mentor, ready to guide others through their own financial challenges. On the day of the workshop, Jake spoke passionately about the importance of education in making sound financial decisions. He shared personal experiences, illustrating his transformation from fear to empowerment. The audience grew engaged as he provided relatable examples of overcoming obstacles. Each story emphasized patience, strategy, and the ultimate lesson he learned: mistakes can be lifelong lessons if leveraged correctly. The attendees appreciated the insights he offered. They asked questions and shared their worries about money, and Jake listened empathetically, providing the same encouragement he received early in his own journey. Seeing their familiarity with self-doubt reminded him of his past struggles. He understood that creating a supportive community was vital in navigating financial matters. This workshop not only reinforced his understanding of financial concepts but also deepened his commitment to maintaining sustainable financial habits. He developed a stronger belief in the importance of saving, continuous learning, and helping others along the way. As he left the library that day, he felt invigorated. The step toward mentorship had allowed him to internalize these lessons profoundly. Handling the unexpected car repair challenge solidified Jake's transformation, allowing him to integrate financial principles into his everyday life effortlessly. The fear that once dominated his decisions faded away, revealing a person who felt equipped for whatever lay ahead. He marveled at how different things were now, both in his mind and in his wallet. Armed with knowledge and looking to the future, Jake embraced the idea of lifelong learning. He was building a solid financial foundation and serving as a beacon for others. The precarious waters of uncertainty, which once worried him, transformed into opportunities for growth, a testament to his change. Each obstacle presented itself as another chance to demonstrate resilience, strategy, and investment in not just his future but also the futures of those around him. A year after Jake had taken those decisive steps towards financial empowerment, his life had transformed in remarkable ways. He found himself in a position of financial independence, actively living out the principles he had carefully studied. Instead of worrying about every small expense, Jake confidently managed his finances, which now included a diversified investment portfolio, an established emergency fund, and a detailed budget that allowed room for enjoyment. He had embraced a lifestyle supported by sound financial habits that encouraged growth and flexibility. One evening, as Jake reviewed his monthly financial snapshot, he noted how his investments had steadily appreciated over time. With each passing month, he celebrated little milestones, including surpassing his initial investment amount and enjoying returns that helped him reach some of his financial goals quicker than he had anticipated. His work ethic had also evolved significantly. Jake no longer viewed his job merely as a way to pay bills. Instead, he sought growth opportunities within his company. He took the initiative on new projects, presented innovative ideas during meetings, and actively cultivated relationships with colleagues and mentors. The confidence derived from his financial knowledge spilled over into his professional life, inspiring him to pursue positions that challenged him. He aimed for a promotion he once thought was unattainable, knowing that every step he took reflected his commitment to mastering his skills. In addition to his personal growth, Jake continued to help others navigate their financial paths. The workshops he had initiated in the library became a regular program in the community. He engaged audience members through fun activities, real-life scenarios, and discussions about common fears surrounding money. He wanted his peers to understand that mistakes were valuable teaching tools on the road to financial literacy, much like his early setbacks had taught him resilience and strategic thinking. Despite the progress, Jake recognized that success is not a finite destination. He learned that achieving financial freedom is an ongoing journey. It requires continuous effort, adaptability, and the openness to learn from both successes and setbacks. Success had taken on an expansive meaning for him, not just financial wealth, but a completely new outlook on life itself. He found joy in the possibilities available to him and the stability that replaced uncertainty. Reflecting on his experience, Jake sat with a sense of fulfillment. He understood that true financial success wasn't simply about accumulating wealth, it was about building systems that supported sustainable living and growth. Wealth meant having the freedom to make choices aligned with personal values, whether that was traveling the world, exploring hobbies, or continuing education. He hoped others would realize that living within one's means, applying logic to financial decisions, and nurturing a growth mindset were critical aspects of financial empowerment. There were many paths to success, and he wanted everyone to appreciate their unique journeys toward their financial goals. As Jake looked forward to the future, he envisioned the many adventures ahead, both personal and financial. He had built a sturdy framework around his money and life choices, allowing him to venture into uncharted territory with excitement rather than fear. He embraced the journey, understanding it was not merely about achieving certain levels of wealth but growing continuously and nurturing opportunities, cultivating relationships, and contributing to the community around him. In his heart, he held a thought that he wanted to share with others: financial success should serve to enrich one's life, creating pathways to contribute, grow, and thrive, unlocking the kind of abundance that can only be realized through awareness, intent, and action. As he closed his notebook filled with notes for his next workshop, he smiled softly until the next marking of growth arrived, navigating this journey together with those around him.